Chosen one, let me ask you something real. Why do you feel safest at home? Why does your spirit breathe easier when you're alone? Why does noise tire you and people drain you? This is not random. This message has reached you right on time, because the very thing you thought was just a preference is actually a spiritual signal. You love staying home? Good. There's a reason. But what if I told you that same reason is the very thing the enemy is trying to use against you? There are 6 deep spiritual truths about your love for solitude that will hit hard, because they're true and because they're yours. This message isn't to shame you. It's to awaken you. You've been hidden, yes, but heaven never hides what it doesn't plan to use. So pay attention. This might just shift your entire life. Comment below with 444 if you've been in a long season of being home, isolated or hidden. I want to see how many of us are in this moment together. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe, tap the bell icon, and share this video with one person who's been in hiding too long. Let's start. The 6 truths are waiting, and they're going to call you out and call you higher. Section 2. Why chosen ones love staying home. The spiritual root. Chosen one, let's talk about the root, because before we go into the hard truths, we have to start with the why. Why do chosen ones, people like you, crave being home so deeply? It's not just a personality trait. It's not just because you're introverted, chosen one. This goes much deeper. From the moment your spirit was marked by heaven, your soul began to reject what the world called normal. Crowds started to feel heavy. Conversations started to feel empty, and going out there began to feel like stepping into a realm that didn't speak your language anymore. That's not dysfunction. That's sensitivity. Spiritual sensitivity. Your love for staying home is actually rooted in preservation. God has hidden you, not because you're weak, but because you're chosen. Just like Moses was hidden in a basket, like David was out in the fields, like Elijah was fed in isolation. God places his warriors in obscurity before he reveals them. Why? Because the noise of the world would corrupt what he's cultivating in you. Because before you can lead, you must first listen. Before you go public, you must get private instructions. So yes, that desire to stay home is divine. It's the Spirit whispering, "Stay close to me. There's something I'm doing in you that doesn't need an audience yet. But now, let me balance that truth." Because while your love for being home may be spiritually rooted, it can also become spiritually dangerous if you misunderstand the season. You see, many chosen ones start out in sacred solitude, but somewhere along the way they get comfortable. They stop discerning. They forget to ask, "Lord, is this still my hiding place, or is this now my launching place?" That's where the enemy creeps in. He can't stop your calling, so he distracts your timing. He plants the lie that says, "Stay a little longer. It's safer here, you know, dasam, or you daman Nani balancesan, dasun. You gonna go out there, Dino, shall we down there again?" And without realizing it, what began as protection becomes stagnation. What was once a sanctuary that Maz's Saita becomes a stronghold. But don't misunderstand me. This isn't about shaming you. This is about waking you up. Because God is not done with you. And the same Spirit that led you home may now be gently nudging you to rise. Let me remind you, the house was never your destiny. It was your temple, a place of worship, a place of transformation. But temples were made to send people out, not trap them in. The world may not have understood your silence, but heaven knew what it was doing. Still, Silence must one day give way to sound, and rest must eventually make room for movement. So if you felt that stirring, that sense that something is shifting, that the same home which once felt like peace now feels like a cocoon getting tight, that's not your imagination. That's heaven whispering. It's almost time. Chosen one, you were hidden for a reason, but now you're being prepared for a season. So yes, your love for staying home is spiritual, but it's also seasonal, and every season ends. Now that you understand the why, let's move forward into the truths that you may not have realized are shaping your soul, your path, and your purpose. Are you ready? Truth number 1. Home is your altar, but it can become your cage. Chosen one. Let's go deeper now. This first truth might sting a little, but it will also free you. You love staying home because home has become sacred. It's your safe place, your altar, where you cry, where you pray, where you hear God, where you've had some of your most intense revelations, your deepest deliverances, your most honest moments. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Your home, your room, your space has turned into an altar. Heaven has met you there. God has trained you in that solitude. Some of your greatest internal wars were fought and won on the floor of your bedroom. So yes, home is holy ground for the chosen one. But here's the truth many don't want to hear. If you're not careful, your altar can become your cage. Let that sink in. You started by seeking God, but somewhere along the way you stopped moving. You built your camp around an encounter and forgot that God is still calling you forward. In the Old Testament, when the Israelites encountered God at Mount Sinai, the mountain trembled, fire fell, and heaven spoke. It was glorious. But they weren't supposed to live there forever. The mountain was a moment, not a destination. And when it was time to move, God lifted the cloud. And some of you right now still have your tent pitched at a place where the cloud has already moved. You're still there because you remember how powerful it used to be. You still feel safe there. You don't want to leave what felt like a breakthrough zone. But here's the spiritual law you must remember. God's presence is mobile. He's not stuck, and if you don't move with him, you get stuck in a shrine to yesterday's encounter. Let me be clear. What God did in your home was real. But now, he wants to do something through you. And that can't happen if you never step outside the door. You see, the altar is where you're broken, but the field is where you're used. The altar is where you're cleansed, but the city is where you're sent. The altar is where you weep, but the world is where you war. You were never meant to stay kneeling forever. You were meant to rise. Some of you have confused spiritual rest with spiritual retreat. You've locked yourself inside routine. You're not worshiping anymore. You're avoiding. You're not being still before God. You're resisting the next step. That's how the altar becomes a cage. It looks holy. It feels holy, but it becomes a spiritual hiding place where nothing ever moves anymore. You keep saying, "I'm just waiting on the Lord." But, let's be honest, you're not waiting. You're hesitating. You're not praying for instruction. You're praying for permission to stay where it's safe. And the danger? The longer you stay caged, the more your faith turns into memory instead of movement. The fire becomes a flicker. The anointing becomes weighty. Not in a good way, but in the way that burdens you with unused potential. Ask yourself this: when was the last time God asked you to move, and you actually moved? Not mentally, not emotionally, physically, spiritually, obediently. Have you been circling the same mountain in the spirit because it's familiar? Because it's safer than the unknown? Because you don't want to face the assignment waiting on the other side. Let me speak prophetically to you. Your altar has expired. The oil poured out in that space served its purpose. But fresh oil requires fresh obedience. You cannot drink from yesterday's cup and expect tomorrow's strength. You can't build a temple where God only wanted a tent. It's time to examine the walls around you. Are they holy boundaries? Or are they spiritual limitations you've accepted because you're afraid to step into your calling? Yes, the enemy will try to attack you out there. Yes, people may not understand your mission. Yes, it's vulnerable. Yes, it's uncomfortable. But let me tell you this. The enemy fears you more when you're activated than when you're comfortable. He'll leave you alone as long as you stay behind your curtains. But the moment you rise up, the moment you step out, the moment you speak, build, serve, release, he trembles because he knows your altar birthed something dangerous, a soul refined by fire, a heart that hears God, a voice that carries glory. You're not just someone who prays. You're someone who's been prepared. You've been preserved in the hidden place for long enough, but now it's time to open the door. Let your altar become a launch pad. Let your home become a house of movement. Let your heart burn again, not just in private, but in public obedience. Chosen one, your home was never meant to hold your entire destiny. It was meant to help shape it. But now that it's shaped, it's time to step into the world God has been preparing you for. You don't need to abandon the altar, but you do need to understand when the altar becomes a cage. So rise. Don't just kneel there anymore. The door is open. Walk through it. Truth number 2, you're hiding from the battle you're called to win, chosen one. Let's not sugarcoat this truth. This one isn't going to be soft. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't for the faint of heart, but it is for the called. You love staying home. You say it's peaceful. You say it's quiet. But in the spirit, you're not just resting. You're hiding. I know that's hard to hear. But let your spirit receive this with humility and clarity, because many of you aren't staying home to recover. You're staying home to avoid the assignment. There is a battle happening in the spirit realm right now. A war for souls, a war for truth, a war for divine identity. And guess what? You were born to be part of it. But instead, you're under the covers, scrolling, overthinking, worshipping in private but refusing to engage in purpose. You weren't built for hiding. You were built for impact. But impact requires confrontation. And if you're unwilling to confront, you will stay bound to comfort. Let's talk about the real reason many chosen ones hide. It's not laziness. It's not rebellion. It's fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of spiritual warfare, fear of failure, fear of stepping out and being seen. But here's the dangerous twist. The enemy doesn't need to defeat you if he can just convince you to stay silent. He doesn't need to destroy your calling if he can keep you paralyzed by your preferences. You're not weak. You're just scared. And because of that, you've turned your home into a fortress. You tell yourself, I'm just taking time with God. But the truth is, God has already spoken. You're not waiting for new instructions. You're just refusing to act on the old ones. You were called to win battles, but you've traded the battlefield for your bedroom. And here's the thing, you can pray all you want, fast, study, receive dreams, but none of it replaces obedience. The anointing doesn't activate when you feel ready. It activates when you move. When David showed up to the battlefield, he wasn't even dressed like a warrior. He was just bringing food. But the moment Goliath roared, David didn't run back home. He stepped forward. Why? Because the fire in him was stronger than the fear around him. And you, chosen one, are standing before your own Goliath right now. It may not be a 10-foot man. but it may be a 10-year cycle, a deeply embedded insecurity, a pattern of spiritual procrastination, a lie the enemy planted that says you're not ready. Let me be blunt. You are more than ready. You're just more comfortable than courageous right now. The battlefield is calling you. There are souls that only your voice will reach. There are demons that only your authority will cast out. There are assignments that are collecting dust because you haven't left the house. Do you feel that ache in your chest when I say this? That burning in your belly? That's your spirit groaning. That's heaven reminding you that your calling is louder than your comfort. It's not that staying home is wrong. It's that staying hidden when you've been called to lead is disobedience. Yes, I said it. Let's stop calling delay discernment. Let's stop pretending like rest is the same as retreat. God's not mad at you, but He is trying to wake you up. Because there's a cost to your silence, a price to your hiding. The people assigned to you are still waiting for your yes. You keep praying, God, send the right people. But what if God is saying, I already did? You're just not in position. The army is moving. The angels are dispatched. The battle is already raging. And you're still checking if you feel led. Let me tell you something. Boldness doesn't always feel like boldness. It often feels like terror in your chest, followed by a whisper from heaven saying, go anyway. You don't need the full picture. You don't need every detail. You just need obedience. And obedience always starts by leaving where you are. So if your soul has been heavy, if you've felt anxious or restless even though you're doing all the right things, it could be that your spirit is suffocating in stillness because you were never meant to stay in hiding this long. Chosen one, you've been trained, you've been refined, you've been preserved. But now, you're being summoned. Summoned into battle. Summoned into purpose. Summoned into uncomfortable obedience. Don't hide from what you were born to conquer. The battlefield is scary, but it's also where your crown is waiting. So rise, put on your armor, and go win what only you can win. The truth number 3, spiritual stagnancy feels comfortable at home, chosen one. Let's talk about the kind of stillness that doesn't feel like disobedience, but is. Let's talk about the kind of peace that's not coming from the Holy Spirit, but from avoidance. Because truth number 3 is this: spiritual stagnancy often feels comfortable, especially when you're at home. Let me explain. There is a dangerous calm that can settle over your life when you stop moving. You're not rebelling, you're not falling into sin, you're just still, but not the kind of stillness that's spirit-led, the kind that quietly numbs your purpose. At first it feels holy, it looks like rest, it sounds like, I'm just letting God lead. I'm giving myself space to heal. I'm protecting my peace. And sometimes that's true, but often it's not. Often, that language is covering up a truth your soul doesn't want to face. You stopped moving forward months ago. Let's go deeper. There's a strange thing that happens when chosen ones stay home for too long. You start mistaking inactivity for spiritual sensitivity. You start convincing yourself that your desire to stay put is discernment, when really, it's delay. Here's the reality. Your spiritual gifts don't switch off just because you stop using them. They remain waiting for you to engage, waiting for you to apply what you've been given. But when you stay in a passive posture for too long, something begins to decay. You don't feel it right away. Because stagnancy is slow, it's subtle. It doesn't come with thunder or fire. It comes with silence, with sameness, with repetition. Wake up. If every day is starting to feel the same, that's not rest. That's spiritual stagnancy. still waters are peaceful, until they stop moving long enough to become toxic. Even fresh water becomes poisonous if it's never poured out. And many of you are carrying revelation, prophecy, healing, creativity, but it's rotting because you haven't let it flow. You're sitting with ideas you never acted on. You're journaling dreams you never prayed into. You're rewatching sermons instead of walking in the ones you already heard. That's not growth, that's spiritual hoarding. And let's be honest, the longer you sit in it, the harder it is to rise again. Why? Because stagnancy makes your soul sleepy. Not sleepy like tired, sleepy like numb. You're awake but not alive. You're praying but not powerful. You're listening to worship, but your heart doesn't burn anymore. And home becomes the perfect environment for this kind of slow decline. Because no one's challenging you there. No one's correcting you. No one's asking if you're still dreaming, still stretching, still pursuing what God told you in the secret place. At home, it's easy to build a rhythm that looks holy but lacks fire. So, let me ask you, and be honest, when was the last time your spirit leapt during prayer? When was the last time you felt divine urgency to move? When was the last time your worship made you weep again? If it's been a while, it's not because you're broken. It's because you've been still for too long. Chosen one, you are not like everyone else. You cannot afford long-term spiritual dormancy. The enemy doesn't attack the stagnant because the stagnant aren't threatening. That's why he'll let you stay in your room. That's why he'll whisper, "This is peace," because as long as you believe it, you won't do anything dangerous. And the devil fears dangerous obedience more than loud declarations. You think you're resting, but some of you are rotting in potential. This is your wake-up call. Spiritual stagnancy isn't always rebellion, but it's always a slow death to your divine assignment. Now, don't get me wrong. This isn't about hustle culture. This isn't about doing more for God to prove your worth. This is about movement. Because the kingdom of God advances, and so do the people carrying it. You cannot stay spiritually still while your assignment keeps marching forward. And yes, movement can look like many things. It might be reaching out. It might be building that thing God told you to start. It might be making that video, writing that book, opening your mouth, saying yes to the uncomfortable. But it will never happen if you stay in your bubble of comfort. So here's the question. Are you still in alignment with the Spirit? Or are you just floating inside a rhythm that used to be alive? But now, it's just a shell. If this is hitting your spirit, drop a comment. 333. That's the number of divine alignment and flow. Let heaven see your yes. Don't settle for comfort. Don't mistake stillness for stability. Don't confuse silence for surrender. Chosen one, it's time to shake off the stillness. Time to move again. Time to pour out what you've been holding. Time to let the water flow. Because stagnant water never births revival. But moving water brings life. Truth number 4, the enemy loves your silence, chosen one. There's something the enemy fears more than your prayers, more than your worship, more than your fasting. You know what it is? Your voice, your words, your expression, your sound, your message. Because when a chosen one opens their mouth under divine authority, something shifts in the spirit. Chains break, demons flee, atmospheres change, souls awaken. That's why the enemy will do everything he can to keep you silent. And I'm not just talking about verbal silence, I'm talking about spiritual silence, the kind where your calling is on mute, where your assignment is paused, where your mouth is closed while your mantle is waiting. Let me be direct. You were given a sound. a spiritual frequency that disrupts darkness. And the longer you stay quiet, the more ground the enemy gains. Silence is comfortable. Silence feels safe. Silence gives you the illusion of control. But silence also keeps you from your divine impact. Think about it. How many times have you felt that nudge, the Spirit whispering, "Say it, post it, call them, write it, pray out loud," and you didn't? You pushed it aside. You told yourself, maybe later. You second-guessed it. You stayed quiet, and nothing changed. But here's the part that hits hardest. The silence didn't just affect you. It affected someone else's breakthrough. Because your voice is connected to other people's freedom. When you speak what God puts in your spirit, He uses it like a key. And somewhere, someone's prison door swings open. But if you don't release it, that door stays locked, and the enemy celebrates. He doesn't have to shut you down if you've already shut yourself down. Understand this. Your voice is not just communication. It's a spiritual weapon heaven creates through sound. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Jesus rebuked the storm with words. Demons were cast out with spoken commands. Miracles happened when declarations were made. And yet, here you are, holding back, sitting on prophetic words, doubting your authority, choosing quiet when God said, "Declare." That's not humility. That's spiritual suppression. You think staying silent keeps you safe, but in reality, it keeps you small. Let's call it what it is, a tactic of hell. Because as long as you're silent, you're not disrupting any systems, you're not awakening any souls, you're not pushing back darkness, you're not fulfilling your voice print on earth. Let me tell you something powerful. The enemy doesn't attack noise. He attacks sound with assignment. Some people talk all day and don't move anything in the spirit. But when you speak, things shake, and he knows that. So he surrounds you with reasons to shut up. Fear, overthinking, comparison, rejection, false humility. He says, "You're not qualified. No one wants to hear you. You're too late. You don't sound like them. Don't make a scene." And if you believe it, you go quiet. But here's what heaven says. "I gave you a sound that hell cannot duplicate or silence." Your voice was designed for such a time as this. It carries assignments. It carries truth. It carries fire. And every time you silence yourself, you bury a seed that was meant to produce fruit. Now, this doesn't mean you have to become loud and dramatic. Spiritual power is not in volume. It's in obedience. Some of you are quiet in personality, and that's fine. But the question is, are you silent in your calling? Because God can use a whisper, but He can't use a withheld message. Let me give you a truth. The longer you stay silent, the heavier your spirit will feel. Because unspoken purpose becomes spiritual weight. You'll start to feel stuck, disconnected, like something is off. And it's not that God left. It's that you stopped releasing what He gave you. So what now? Chosen one. It's time to speak again. Not just in private prayer, not just in vague language, but boldly, clearly, obediently. Speak life. Speak truth. Speak what you were shown in the secret place. Write the post. Send the message. Record the video. Pray the prayer. Preach the word. Intercede again. Declare again. Sing again. Don't let the enemy keep winning just because you're scared of the sound you carry. Because guess what? That sound will shatter the assignment of the enemy if you let it out. So here's your charge. Open your mouth. Use your words and let the silence end today. Because your voice isn't just a gift, it's a weapon, and heaven is waiting for you to wield it. Truth number 5, you're forgetting your mission, chosen one. Let's pause and be honest. Have you been feeling disconnected from your assignment? Like something is missing, but you can't quite explain what? You're still praying, still reading, still saying yes in your heart. But deep down, you feel off. Let me tell you what it is. You've started to forget your mission, and it didn't happen overnight. It didn't come with a crash or a crisis. It came quietly, subtly, softly. You didn't rebel, you just paused. Hebrews. You go as you told yourself, I'll pick it back up soon. But soon turned into weeks, then months, and now you're further from your mission than you've ever been. That's how the enemy works. He doesn't always attack with chaos. Sometimes he attacks with comfort. He wraps you in stillness. He numbs your fire. He whispers, you've already done enough. And without realizing it, you begin to settle. You settle for routine. You settle for quiet. You settle for a safe version of yourself that no longer shakes the gates of hell. But here's the truth. Your mission has not changed. The mantle is still on your life. The scroll of your assignment has not been cancelled. Heaven is still waiting for your full return. Don't let time deceive you. Don't let inactivity redefine you. You were called with fire. And that fire is still burning, even if it's only an ember now. Let's rewind for a moment. Remember when the calling first hit you? When God stirred something in your soul that you couldn't explain. You had vision, you had urgency, you had divine fire in your bones. What happened to that version of you, I'll tell you. Life happened. Disappointment happened. Delay happened. And little by little, the mission got blurred. You stopped talking about it. You stopped planning for it. You stopped believing it was still possible. But listen to me, and listen with your spirit. God did not change his mind, even when you slowed down, even when you backed away, even when you forgot. He didn't. The mission is still alive. But it needs you to wake up again. Because forgetting your mission doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're out of position. And when you're out of position, you lose divine alignment. Things feel off. Doors don't open. Ideas feel flat. You're tired all the time, but not physically. Spiritually. That's the weight of an unused assignment. That's the burden of a calling that's being ignored. So what do? You return, not to the emotion of it, but to the obedience. You don't need another confirmation. You need to remember what God already told you. Revisit the prophecy. Reopen the journal. Reclaim the blueprint. Dust off the instruction. Because somewhere along the way, you stopped building. You stopped running. You started waiting for perfect conditions. But the mission doesn't wait for perfect. It only responds to yes. And hear me, this is not about guilt. This is about realignment. You're not too late. You're not too far gone. You haven't missed it. But you do need to rise, because forgetting your mission creates space for distractions to become your new assignment. And before long, you'll be busy, but not purposeful, moving, but not aligned, doing, but not obeying. That's not who you are. That's not why you were chosen. You were set apart, not just to be holy, but to be useful. And that means your silence must end, your passivity must break, your maybe later must turn into right now. Chosen one, the mission is waiting. And every day you delay, someone else's breakthrough gets postponed. That's how serious this is. You're not carrying an opinion, you're carrying divine orders, and heaven expects you to move with urgency. So here's what I want you to do. After this video, sit down in silence, not to scroll, not to nap, but to remember. Ask the Spirit, what did you assign to me that I've forgotten? And then listen. The answer will come. And when it does, obey. Even if it's small, even if it's scary, even if it's something you tried before and failed. Because the moment you start to act, you'll feel your spirit come alive again. The weight will lift, the clarity will return, and the fire will burn hot once more. You haven't lost your mission, you've just left it unattended. But today, you can reclaim it. Truth number 6, home is not the promised land. Chosen one. Let's get something straight. Home has its place. It's where God met you. It's where He healed you. It's where you found your voice, your tears, your strength, your convictions. But home was never supposed to become your final destination, because no matter how safe, how holy, or how peaceful it feels, home is not the promised land. It was the place of formation, not fulfillment. It was the place of revelation, not completion. And here's where many chosen ones get stuck, right on the edge of movement. You've built something sacred in your solitude, and now stepping out feels like betrayal. You say things like, "But I meet God here. But I found peace here. But I'm growing here." And all that is true. But listen closely. Growth has a goal, and that goal is not to keep you spiritually fat, but to make you spiritually mobile. You weren't built to camp in glory forever. You were built to carry it out there. Look at Israel. God took them out of Egypt and brought them into the wilderness. Why? To purify them, to detox them from slavery, to teach them to trust, to reveal His voice and His law. But was the wilderness the end? He had already spoken of a land flowing with milk and honey, a land where they would plant, build, multiply, and establish His name. But what happened? They got so used to the wilderness, they began to think it was normal. They even romanticized Egypt at one point. And some of you've romanticized isolation. You've mistaken preparation for arrival. You've taken a spiritual wilderness and redecorated it like it's a permanent home. But the truth is, God is trying to lead you into promise, and to do that, He's going to start making home uncomfortable. You may have already felt it. That holy discomfort, that restlessness in your spirit, that sense that you're surrounded by familiarity but still feel unfulfilled. That nagging question, is this really all there is? That's not a lack of gratitude, that's divine disruption. It's God whispering, the season that once served you has now expired. Listen, the promised land is not just a metaphor for heaven, it's not just eternal reward, it's also purpose, influence, impact, walking fully in what God ordained before you were even born. And that will never happen if you refuse to move. The comfort of home has become a sedative. It's lulled you to sleep with warm routines and gentle distractions. But comfort isn't calling you anymore. Purpose is. There's a version of you that's only activated in motion. There's oil that only flows when you obey beyond the safe zone. There are doors that only open when your feet leave the house. I'm not saying abandon your peace. I'm saying follow the cloud. In Scripture, the cloud by day and fire by night didn't stay still. And when it moved, Israel moved. When it stopped, they camped. But no one tried to live where God had already departed. Some of you, God has moved on from your current space, and you're still decorating it like He's staying. That's why things feel dry. That's why the revelation is quiet. That's why your prayer life feels mechanical. Because the fire moved, but you didn't follow. The home that once felt like heaven now feels hollow. That's your signal. It's not punishment. It's invitation. An invitation to enter promise. Because the promised land requires something different from you. It requires movement. It requires courage. It requires confrontation. Yes. But it also releases reward. You've been in preservation mode. Now it's time for possession. The things God whispered to you in the stillness, they weren't just to comfort you, they were blueprints, assignments, seeds. And those seeds are not meant to stay buried in your living room. They're meant to be planted in the land you were promised to take. So what does that look like? It might mean starting the thing you've put off for years. It might mean showing up in a space that intimidates you. It might mean speaking to people you avoided. It might mean changing your schedule, your surroundings, your strategies. But one thing is certain, it will mean leaving home behind as your identity. Home can no longer be your spiritual personality. It can no longer be your shield. It can no longer be your substitute for the battlefield. It's time to shift your mindset from "I'm just here waiting on God" to "God is waiting on me to walk." Because the promised land doesn't come to you. You go to it. And yes, there are giants there. Yes, there are unknowns. Yes, you'll have to fight. But you'll also find favor, provision, alignment, breakthrough, legacy. You'll finally feel what your soul has been craving, divine fulfillment. Not just inner peace, but outward purpose. So here's your charge, chosen one. Pack up your tent, collect the manna of memory, honor what the home season taught you, but then move. Step into what God has always had for you. The land is already yours. The door is already unlocked. The time is already right. All that's missing is you. Section 9. What to do now? Breaking the stay-home spiritual loop. Chosen one. You've heard the truths. You've felt the conviction. Now the question is, what do you do about it? Because knowledge without action just becomes another layer of delay. And you've been in delay long enough. This section is your activation moment. Not emotional hype, but spiritual movement. So how do you break the stay-home spiritual loop? 1. Acknowledge the shift. The first step is admitting it. Your season of hiding is over. That doesn't mean you abandon your home or stop being still before God. It means you stop using home as your excuse. Your spirit already knows. You've felt the tension, the dryness, the divine discomfort. Now it's time to say it out loud. My hiding season is over. I'm ready to move. 2. Obey the first instruction again. Go back to the last thing God told you to do. The instruction you ignored, delayed, or postponed. Before you ask for a new word, honor the one you were already given. Start small, but start. Maybe it's sending that message, posting that video, writing that idea, stepping into a space you've avoided. Obedience isn't about scale. Consistency in small steps breaks the loop of delay. 4. Take territory. Outside your comfort. Intentionally do one thing outside your comfort zone every week. Call someone. Serve somewhere. Speak up in that meeting. Start the project. Go to the place God's been nudging you toward. Break the rhythm of passivity with movement, even if it's messy. Because motion births momentum. 5. Guard against the pull to retreat. When discomfort comes, and it will, your old pattern will try to pull you back. You'll feel the urge to shut down, stay home, go silent again. Don't. Recognize the cycle. Call it what it is. Then pray, praise, and push forward. Say out loud, I break agreement with the cycle of retreat. I choose purpose over comfort, and heaven will meet you there. 6. Stay connected to the mission. Every day, ask, who am I assigned to today? Where am I needed? What has heaven placed in my hands? Then move from waiting to walking, from talking to doing, from potential to purpose. Chosen one, The loop ends here. The room won't get smaller, but your spirit is getting louder. God is not just calling you to come out. He's calling you to go forth. So break the loop, take the step, and let the cycle of hiding be replaced with a rhythm of bold, beautiful obedience. Your next chapter doesn't start with clarity. It starts with courage. Section 10, Final Prophetic Warning and Conclusion. Chosen one. We've come to the end of this message, but for you, it's the beginning of a new movement. Before we close, I need to give you this final prophetic warning. It's not to scare you, it's to awaken you. You cannot afford to stay still after this. You've heard too much, you've seen too much, you've felt the shift in your spirit. And if you ignore it now, you will feel the weight of disobedience like never before. Why? Because heaven holds you accountable for what you've received. You are not a casual listener. You are not a random viewer. You are a chosen one, marked and summoned for a divine time such as this. And if you walk away from this word unchanged, you'll feel it. Not because God is punishing you, but because your spirit knows that alignment was offered and delayed again. The longer you wait, the colder the fire gets. The more you stay silent, the heavier your mantle becomes. The more you ignore the call, the harder it is to hear it. So I say this with all the love and all the urgency in my soul. Move. Now. Not next month. Not next year. Not when you feel ready. Because the enemy won't wait. The world won't wait. And your assignment cannot wait. You've been hidden long enough. You've been preparing long enough. The season of incubation has ended. And now you must emerge. Chosen one, the fire is still in you. It's not too late. You haven't missed it. God has preserved you for this moment. And this moment demands your response. So stand up in your spirit, shake off the dust, speak again, move again, love again, lead again. Live like someone who's been given a divine mission, because you have. And as you do, the doors will open, the oil will flow, the right people will appear, the clarity will return, because God always meets movement with miracles. If this word activated your spirit, comment below 999 for full surrender, final preparation, and divine release. Let this be your prophetic agreement with heaven. I'm done hiding. I'm done hesitating. I'm done delaying. I will move. And if you know even one person who's been stuck, stagnant, or spiritually silent, send them this video. Their breakthrough might start with your obedience. And remember this final truth. The world is not changed by those who stay hidden. It's changed by those who step into the light, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it costs them everything. Chosen one, you are ready, and heaven is waiting. Now, go.